Meghan Heritage. I'm here with two of my dear friends who are also mortgage lenders in West Michigan. And they're here to tell us a little bit about the current environment in the mortgage industry and answer some questions that I think are relevant to the times that we're in. So, Lisa, I'm going to start with you.
Hi.
How many years in the business?
So I have been mortgage for about 31 years total.
Oh my gosh.
So,
amazing.
Long time.
That is a really long time.
Yes.
And what's your favorite thing about your job?
Favorite thing for me is the people I meet is really the best. A lot of them are my friends now. I think in your line of work too.
Yeah.
It's probably one of your most favorite things is all the different people that you meet from all over and helping them find their forever home or even just a stepping stone is awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my favorite part is the people.
What's the hardest part right now?
Hardest part right now is in our industry, it's a little stressful out there, right? Interest rates have people concerned, although they've been a little better lately. So we're so excited, and we think in the coming months you may see them even improve more. We are very time-driven industry, like getting things to the closing table on time. You know, those parts sometimes can be a struggle, but communication is huge. So if you communicate well with your agents and your buyers, that can turn into a very much positive as well. So.
Okay, and then where is your absolute most favorite place to eat in West Michigan?
Oh my gosh, you're gonna ask me that really hard question.
You can name two if you really feel like you need to.
Really? Oh, let me see. I'm gonna say, I actually love the new place in Spring Lake. Oh my gosh,
Mia's?
I'm drawing a blank. What is it?
Mia's?
Ralph's barbecue?
No, not Ralph's. With the deck up top. Finn's.
Oh, yeah.
Fins.
Okay, look
Finn's.
at you.
Yes.
All right.
So I love that. I think that is like really great place. And then I love in the Muskegon area, Bear Lake Tavern.
Me too.
We
Salad.
enjoy to sit
Yeah.
there and have a really great meal. So I would recommend both.
I'm super foodie, so that's
Yeah,
always
I know.
where can we go? If you
I
can tell
know.
me any place else I can
Right.
go. Tacos and friends bring me joy.
Yes.
All right.
Miss Molly Fazakerly.
Hello.
Who I've known for a long, long time.
Yeah, way
I
back
feel
when.
like, at least I've known forever. And I feel like, I've known you for so long too.
Yeah.
It's been really fun to like watch you come up. I'm just excited to see your journey and watch you shine. So
Thanks.
how many years in the business, the lending business?
So the lending business specifically, it'll be 4 years.
Okay.
But I remember being at Huntington Bank and having Mr. John Heritage come in. I got to help him. And then in comes in Meghan, not too, many days after, and like, I need to know you. And I'm like, you need to know me? She's like, yeah, my husband says you're really
Yeah.
great. And like, just took a minute to praise. And I was like, nobody does that. Wow. So
Yeah, I could tap my heart. I felt I was like, why are you here as a bank teller? Like I could just see all of this potential. And it's been really beautiful to watch that. I've had that a couple of times in my life. I actually stole someone from German and Lass's team a long time ago.
that's awesome.
Her name was Candy Stone, and I just saw something and was like, oh man, she needs to go work for the land development company that I worked for first, Makio. But I felt the same way, like, oh, this one's special. This one's got something special. So,
Thanks.
okay. So I'm sorry, how many years did you say?
4 years.
Okay, so 4 years. And then what is your favorite thing about your job as an LO?
So I come from the financial industry and I did investments for a short period of time. And a lot of times those aren't the most joyous moment in people's lives. And switching to mortgage, I get to help people truly fulfill like one of their deepest and biggest dreams of becoming a homeowner or buying their dream home. So that is probably my favorite part is like getting to watch people fulfill a dream that some of them didn't even know was possible.
Yeah.
And being along for the journey with them.
Yeah, I like that. And where are we going to eat if I'm going out with you tonight?
The station.
Oh,
Kristen Kelly Myers? Yes, absolutely.
It's so good. I mean, their burgers are the best.
Yes. It's so good. And when we're up there, I usually get extorted at the RC car place that's just around the corner.
Oh, yeah.
And then we go there and Chris will let Henry sit at the bar. Even when he was little, one time he went off a bar stool. It's super cute. When it's not busy there during the day, and we eat chicken wings, and I send people there all the time. It's such a neat spot.
It really is.
Yeah. It's fantastic. Okay, so I want to dig in a little bit to, just what this looks like right now. I've got, some statistics that are a little bit frightening to me. So the average home buyer right now in the United States of America is 36 years old. And on top of that, the average dollar sale, and I'm sure there's all kinds of different data points from different places, but they're saying is in the range of $460,000. What I find a lot of as a residential real estate broker, for 17 years is that people don't always know what's available. And so I want to start off right out of the gate with this MSHDA situation. Is it a loan? Is it a grant? Is it a lottery win? Who can get it? So, Lisa, you start. Molly, you take the end of it. Somebody tell me what's up.
Yeah, so MSHDA, first of all, Michigan State Housing Development Authority. So it's a state of Michigan program. Personally, I love the program. I mean, if you are a first-time home buyer, it is ideal for you, especially right now. Like you said, they're giving up to $10,000 for you to buy a home. Now, that's not free money. No. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about that because I think some people think that it's something that doesn't need to be repaid. What it does is it helps them get into the home.
Okay.
So there are some quirks with MSHDA. You have to credit qualify, minimum credit score requirements, income. That's a big thing. They have income limits. You can only make so much money to use a MSHDA program. If you're a doctor making $200,000 a year, obviously that's not something that the state's gonna help you with. But
right.
I usually say it's really good for someone that's just out of college, starting their first job, kind of getting into, maybe, has lower debt, hasn't really, obtained a lot of debt out there yet, is making a decent wage. That kind of thing.
So my credit for this is in the sevens, or my credit?
No. It's 640.
Yep. Oh.
For credit score.
Okay.
Yeah, 640. So you can go down to 640 on a credit score.
Okay. And then
MSHDA.
Molly, how much money can I have? Well, I can't have it, it sounds like, but how much money can I have? Can someone have, a qualified person have? And when do they have to give it back?
So up to $10,000 is what can be given towards your closing costs, prepaids, and down payment. You're still having to come in with 1%, of course, right? Kids like something when they're invested in it, so MSHDA wants you to have a little investment in it to take care of it as well. So up to $10,000. Typically, we try to use as much of that as possible to make sure like we're putting them in the best position. And then you are deferred for 5 years. So it's tacked as a second lien on your house. If you are to sell the house or refinance, that's owed back to MSHDA.
Okay. And then when you say we get this $10,000, is that $10,000 going to be used towards down payment and what we would call closing costs and prepaid items?
You got it. Yep.
Okay. And then one of you explain what closing costs and prepaid items are, because no one seems to know.
Yes. So it's a really good question, and definitely something that most people don't understand. So your closing costs are going to be everything from your lender fees, underwriting, processing, third-party items like a credit reporting agency, flood certificates, things like that, title insurance fees for them to do the title work searches, making sure the property is good, free, and clear. And your prepaid items are typically to set up your escrow account. You'll have a little prepaid interest depending on the time of the month you close. Prepaid, we're going to collect your homeowner's insurance premium to make sure that's paid so your property has sufficient coverage. And then we're also collecting to pay for those upcoming tax bills. So the taxes are paid on the property as well.
Okay. And then generally speaking, when people are thinking about purchasing a property, those are somewhere in the neighborhood of 3%? Or is there a percentage that they would know? I'm thinking like this. So I know that I want the houses that I'm seeing in my market are about $300,000. And how do I prep myself to know I'm going to need this much money roughly in closing costs, this much money in down payment? How would I know? Where do I even start?
Talk to a great lender.
Yeah.
really. I mean, you can kind of, there are like those average rules, roughly 3% is kind of what the market has said, hey, average about 3%, similar to like a listing, okay, you'll net roughly about 92% of your sales price, right? But each property is different. Tax bills make a big difference,
Right.
things like that. If people want to buy down their interest rate. So there's so much that goes into it. That's where the best advocacy for people who are looking at and want to know their options and want to know what to plan for is really like get them in front of the expert so that they can go over each unique situation and the opportunities that are really best for them.
Right.
And any lender should be able to give them a cost estimate.
Right.
Not necessarily even going in to apply for a mortgage, like official applying, but they should be able to give them a scenario estimate on what those look like.
Yeah. And
You know?
I think that this is one of the things, if you're, out there and you're thinking about purchasing a property, I have heard over and over again, well, I don't want to contact a lender because I'm not ready right now.
Yes.
And a lot of people also who will apologize to me and say, well, we're not looking to buy for, a year. I mean, I say I'm not independently wealthy. I'm far from done working. I will be selling houses in 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, God willing. So don't be afraid to call someone and say, what would this trajectory and plan look like? And I know we've done that multiple times for people where someone has said, I had a divorce, I had a bankruptcy, I had something, go on. And I will say, call Lisa. She's the least salesy person. Molly, you work this way too. And just ask all of the questions like she's your friend. And then they will find a way to be able to kind of, get you a path forward, because I feel like people feel like bankruptcy, foreclosure, divorce, tanking credit is just, it's over. And it's not.
No.
Okay, so I like the MSHDA. I like the MSHDA. It sounds like these are also area specific.
Yes, it is. MSHDA, though, actually has opened up a lot.
Yeah.
So it used to be very zip code oriented. It's really not that much anymore.
Okay.
So you can pretty much go anywhere with MSHDA.
Yeah. It's mostly just the
So,
income now.
Yeah, it's the income pieces where you cannot make more than their threshold, and they're really sticky about your debt ratio.
Yeah.
So can't be higher than a 43 debt ratio.
Okay.
With MSHDA. So those couple of things. The other thing that can kind of throw people off with MSHDA is anybody 18 years and up that is going to live in that house with them has to credit qualify.
Oh, wow.
So
Sneaky, sneaky.
sneaky.
Kick those kids out. I'm just kidding. Don't do
Yeah.
that.
Don't do that. But yeah, sometimes people get caught in that a little bit too. So they're not on the loan with them per se, but they have to credit qualify. So
Interesting.
if you have an 18-year-old son living with you still, 640 credit.
Right, or a younger person that might want to purchase a property and then rent a room, right? Like to a friend or something like that, which I guess then gets into, is it a commercial loan? Is it a residential loan? And we just keep going and going, right?
So when they apply for the loan, there will be a form in there, that kind of says, is there anybody in the home that's 18 or up that's going to be living with you?
Wow.
So there is that question when they go to apply for MSHDA. That's why I kind of said it is perfect for somebody just out of college, just kind of getting on their own feet, kind of leaving mom and dad's, and
as long as they're going to stay in
the
the property long enough to have the equity to be able to pay back,
The Section
right?
lien, yes.
Correct.
When they take off. I think this word grant makes us think of like scholarship, like we're going to college and somebody is going to give us free money.
And we never have to pay it back.
Yeah, and that is dangerous. And it's been done because I've been a realtor 9 million years. I feel like it's been done multiple times and called multiple different things.
For sure.
And so I wanted to start with that. There's another thing that I think is super interesting that's happening right now. And I think it's people who are getting into programs where you can refinance with the expectation that rates are coming down, right? I think we were at 8.25 at one point, and we're somewhere 6.5-ish.
Yeah, 6.5 might be able to get under a little, under 6.5 today.
Okay,
So,
and all of that is credit dependent, and all of that
Right.
has to do with your income to debt ratio and in so many different things. But these abilities to be able to refinance the property, how does that work?
So refinance, you can do at any point.
Yep.
So we tell people we want it to be about 1% lower than where you're at with your rate to even think about it.
Okay.
And we want you to be in that house at least 3 more years to recoup the cost of doing the refinance, because you do have closing costs again. So we usually ask people, now you're going to stay in the house. So
Right.
for a few more years, just so that you're not throwing away those closing cost piece of it. But yeah, you can do that at any point, refinance. Just we got to decide, we got to run some scenarios and see if it's going to be, worth it. I always tell people when they refinance, you also don't want to go back to where you started.
Right.
So if you did a 30-year fixed and now we're 2 years later and you're going to refi, don't go back to a 30-year fixed.
Right.
So
Are we still, are lending institutions still allowing people to do that at a reduced fee or free?
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
So Peace of Mind program is what LMC is offering. Now, of course, right now we currently have an expiration date at the end of August.
Okay.
So any purchase closed by the end of August, we offer within the next 24 months of closing. If rates do fall, we'll waive our lender fees, which is a huge value for borrowers. Still got to pay for your appraisal, some title work, things like that to make sure that things are still kosher there. But ultimately, it gives people the opportunity as rates hopefully continue to fall, like we project them to, they'll get to take advantage and put themselves in an even better position.
Right. Yeah. I think that is something people are looking at. Like, what if I, jump into this thing right now and then in 6 months it's, 1% less, and how do I math that? Right.
right.
And I think it's complicated because there is a lot of data out there that says that if rates go down, we're going to then see prices go up and this feeding frenzy come back.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because property values go up, but because now we go back to these, multiple offer situations where we're driving prices back up if buyers come, back out and they like the 5%. So I know you don't have a crystal ball, but do you think we will continue to see rates go down?
The prediction right now is that the feds have released that they do anticipate starting to drop. August is going to be a big month. They say that they'll likely have a drop on the feds, which isn't always correlates to mortgage rates, but a lot of times they typically will mirror each other. So they anticipate 1/4 to 1/2% cut in August, which could be fantastic, right? But there's no perfect prediction as to what happens.
Yeah.
Don't mark my words. I wish I could say yes for sure, but they anticipate, and they're stating that we could see into the 5s come next year.
Wow. Well, and that's, I think, the hard part with the statistic that I gave, right? Like, if we've got $460,000, average prices, and it's the hill I'll die on. Like, affordable housing is the hill I'll die on, because I just remember sitting with my husband when we bought it was like $176,000 house, and just being like so excited, like crisscross applesauce in the living room, like,
Yeah.
And I don't believe this, all millennials are transient and they just want to live free. And I'm sure that is true for some people, but this has been an equity and a wealth builder for my family. And I've helped people to do it over and over again by continuing their move up. And I don't know why we don't want to live in our investment, right? Like, we have an investment that we get to also touch, right? Money in a market. I can't touch that. I can't invite people over to dinner in it.
Make memories in it.
No, it's that's really not a thing. Lisa, you taught me something that I thought was really important. Talk to me about reamortization and paying extra on my payments.
Right. So big deal there. If I tell people when they do a 30-year mortgage, if you can at least make one extra principal payment a year, takes about 7 to 8 years off the life of that loan.
It's crazy.
Right? So if you figure 7 or 8 years, figure that interest, it's crazy, what that can do. And I tell people sometimes that's just as simple as taking your monthly payment and making an extra $30 on
Right,
it.
yeah.
I mean, it kind of depends on what your payment's at, but it's something very easy you can do without thinking about making that payment, right? Change your auto pay.
Right.
For that, to get at least one extra payment in a month.
Okay.
Or a year for that.
Yeah.
So,
I think right in the beginning, I think DeLass actually, like years ago. So we have a friend who recently left, got to retire, that we all love very much, Lisa DeLass, and she helped me with that when she did my first mortgage. At first it was dividing, I think it was $1,000 or something by 12, and then putting that in, and then the next year it was 2,000 and by 12 until we got a fair amount of that paid down, because my goal was to take out my entire mortgage in my very early 30s, which I was able to do. And that's part of the reason that I absolutely hate how complicated it has become to be a homeowner, and why I'm incredibly grateful to both of you for helping to uncomplicate that in the ways that we've talked about. Re-amortization, tell me about that.
Yeah. So you can re-amortize. Like I said, the best time to do that is when you refinance. So we can, at LMCU, we can do any term for you. So some lenders only, will take you from a 30 to a 25 to a 20. We can kind of tweak that to wherever you need it for that. But you're talking huge interest savings by doing that, taking your amortization down in the interest. I had a guy yesterday came in, and we were looking at doing between a 15 and a 30. And when I did the amortization calculator for him, he couldn't believe the amount of interest. It was more than half. I mean,
right.
Between the 30 and the 15, right?
Yes.
The other option you can, let's say, let's just throw out that you won the lottery or had an inheritance, something like that. We will allow you to do a principal pay down of your mortgage at any time, and we will re-amortize you to that new balance if you want.
Go back for 1 second, because nobody knows what amortization.
Oh,
so there's probably approximately 5 people who are watching this. It's like my mom and all of her friends, my aunts. And one of them knows what amortization means, or an amortization schedule. So let's start there.
So an amortization, you should get one at your loan closing. It goes through. Some people put it on their fridge and they mark it off, but it tells you every single time you make a monthly payment, how much is going to principal, how much goes to interest, and how your balance changed, how your principal balance changed. So we always say the good news is that you're buying a home,
right,
and you're going there. The bad news is the amortization schedule on a 30-year mortgage is several pages long,
right? A little intimidating.
Right. And then, like I said, so any little change to what your principal payment is, changes that amortization and when your payoff will happen. So we say that schedule you get at closing, you can change that by doing very little, by making just a little bit of extra payment to that principal.
So we did it with lump sum with you once, and it was like a few $100s, I think, in order to, is that still the same?
Yep, I would say it's about the same. So,
yeah. And you can even, I've had people that get a lump sum, pay down their principal balance, but don't necessarily re-amortize because they don't need the lower payment.
Right.
They're just continuing to aggressively pay down that principal balance. If it goes to pay it off earlier, like, hey, let's not recast. Save yourself the couple $100. Just keep aggressively paying it down. And so that way you're not trying to restructure to lower your payment back down.
And is it always possible to pay directly towards principal?
Yeah, absolutely.
You just have to do what?
Yeah, basically it's easy. You can, walk into your lender, do it manually through the teller line, but like on our LMCU app, you can do it right on the app. Right under your mortgage loan, you'll see principal only. You just got to mark that box, and you can transfer from your checking to your principal.
Yeah. Kind of the beauty of doing your banking and your mortgage through a depository institution or a bank or a credit union is that you just pop online or pop in the branch, and it's done so quickly and so efficiently.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think being able to still have relationship and like see someone's eyeballs and take my 2 sons in there and get their debit cards and have them all like set up so that they understand, and talk to them about interest and, their checking and their savings account. And I thought that was a nice start to the whole thing. So I don't want the longest podcast ever, but I do want to hear from both of you. What do you think you would say to someone who was out there that was on the fence about buying right now? What advice would you have with your, experience.
So they're on the fence about buying the house for the first time?
Sure. Let's talk to a first-time home buyer, and then Lisa, you can take somebody who's out there that's like, I don't want to give them my 3% mortgage
Right.
rate, and
Right.
Yeah.
I have my own thoughts on that, but I want to hear yours.
I was going to say that because it really depends on who you're talking to. So for a first-time home buyer, I would say the more information you get, the earlier on, the more equipped you'll be.
Right.
It is so good to reach out to your local expert, a mortgage lender, and an agent. Start asking questions. And you shouldn't feel pressure, right? You shouldn't have to do a credit inquiry and start providing all this documentation to simply just start seeing, is it feasible? What are the things that I need to do in order to get started on the track of owning a home?
Right.
And then we can really start to game plan and allow it to snowball from there. But if you don't connect with the right people, you'll never step forward. It's just taking that leap of faith to get connected to somebody, to get outside of your comfort zone, pick up the phone, call and say, I have some questions. Can you help me?
Yeah.
And you'll be so pleasantly surprised when you call like Lisa and myself. We're like, absolutely. Like that's what we're here for and we're passionate about doing.
Yeah, and I feel that way about both of you. And I think if you feel like it's, you're not smart or it's a dumb question or whatever, just know that I've been doing this for almost 20 years and I still call and say, can you explain this MSHDA to me? Help me understand. Remember the 3, 2, 1 buy down, the arm that's happening.
Yeah.
What happens with a doctor's loan? Help me understand the difference between an FHA and a VA. Like we could go all day with investor programs, like you name it. So these are not dumb questions, and these are questions that could affect you over the lifetime of the loan unless you refinance. Ask all of them up front.
I tell people I worry about the people that don't ask us questions.
Absolutely.
Those are the people that I worry about,
Yeah.
If you're not asking me any questions, you know what I mean? So, and first-time home buyers too, I always tell them, think of it as a savings account for you,
So
right?
true.
So I know up front you're putting some money down, you're feeling like, oh, can I do this? But in the long run, even if it's just a couple years, I feel like it's usually a built-in savings account for you.
Yeah. I do too,
So-
and I love living in it.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
I went to our
definitely.
pastor before we built our house. We lived in a very, it was, 1,600 square feet. We were outgrowing it, whatever. And I did not feel good about building myself. I'd built houses for everybody, right? You remember that day when I was like, Lisa, do you think that I could borrow this amount of money? And she laughed at me. She was like, you could actually borrow way more than that. But I'm intensely frugal as a human being.
Yeah.
But I went to our pastor and I was like, I just don't feel good about like spending this money and buying this lot and, doing all of this. And he was like, okay, so like Jesus, God, the Holy Spirit, they're all good with you having money inside of an investment account. But they don't want you to have a house where you might be able to have people over or a Bible study or invite humans in, or is it that God just wants you broke?
Right.
And it is like really, to those who much is given, much is expected. And I do feel like you all balance like life goals, right? And sometimes I'll say, guys, like that's not a real estate decision. That's not something, that's a lifestyle goal, right? If you're going to go another 25,000 or 50,000 up in your budget, we now need to look at perhaps what you're giving up.
Right.
And in what that's going to look like for you long term. Is it a couple of dinners out or is it your family vacation to Disney, right? And interest rates can affect something like that. So what is your advice? What would you say to somebody who is out there?
That has the lower rate.
Right, the me. That's like,
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
the me. I don't want to walk away from my refinance at whatever it is, 2.9%.
2.9%. It's a tough question, right? Because I see both sides of that story. So I see like where they're coming from. Like I should not be moving. I have this rate, but you have to look at your family, your situation. Like, are you in an 800 square foot home with 3 dogs, 2 kids, and life has that stress, right? That's stressful sometimes being in a space that doesn't work for your family. So, and, I've owned a home for a very long time, and the refinance thing, I think some people are bothered by that, but I also feel over my 31 years, we've seen this rate thing before,
Yeah.
right? We've seen the highs, we see the lows. It's going to come back around. It's going to be the same sort of roller coaster, I guess, in a way. But I just think you have to take a really good look at what works for your family, you and your family.
Right.
You know, if it is that, hey, I really need to get us into a more a peaceful space than where we're in, then you know what? Personally, I'm like, hey, if you're smart about it, you can do that.
Right.
You know?
For me, it's a lot of
So-
doing the math too to think about like, okay, but what equity position are you in? If you've lived in your house for 5 or 6 years or 7 years, you've had this appreciation year over year over year.
Yeah.
So now are you
taking
going
all
to take that
all of
and
it.
go dump it on what you're buying and you have a higher rate, but you have a lower loan rate?
Right.
Correct.
So
I just had this conversation with somebody the other day. They were contemplating listing, and the listing agent was like, honestly, call my friend Molly, talk to her, like just talk about those type of numbers, because that seems to be what's holding you back from making this transition for your family.
Yeah.
So we chatted about it, and I'm like, listen, you've owned this house for 8 years. Your year over year appreciation, you have this much gained equity.
yeah.
We can make this math work, right? Not only do you have the appreciation that you'll put down, you can buy your rate down too, using that appreciation and leveraging that to buy your rate down if it's a lower rate that will give you more peace of mind. There is absolutely an equation that we can help get there.
Yeah, and I feel like the CPA almost comes into that sometimes when you're looking at younger people who haven't owned properties. They're not married. They aren't getting a property tax deduction. They aren't getting an interest deduction. They're filing singularly. Like that's all in a tax benefit, a space too, where I feel like maybe you should ask some questions of what this looks like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I always suggest that to people if they have a financial advisor,
Yeah.
something like that, because I found over the last few weeks that some financial advisors are actually telling people, hey, take the mortgage out for now.
Yep.
Even where rates are at, right? They don't want them to touch some of their investments. So they have to have that conversation with their financial advisor as well.
Yeah.
To see like, hey, what works?
It took a CPA, financial advisor, and you and my pastor and John all to get me into a space where he was like, if we're just going to die here, like, can you please stop working so hard?
Right.
And I feel like I just needed that. Like I needed a bunch of people that I trusted to help me understand what this path forward looked like, because I'd done it for so many other people, right?
Yeah, right.
But I couldn't get my own individual perspective. And it did feel odd being like, okay, now can we do this for me?
Yeah.
Like, can you explain to me how I sell this house, take the equity out of this house, put this over there in a new construction, which we, don't have time to get into, how that whole thing, works as well.
Right.
So I would say, this first no-name podcast, feel free, anybody, to help me name my podcast. What you're doing, the upside of what you're doing is supplying information for free.
Yeah.
For free.
Right. And the first rule of sales, in my opinion, is a confused prospect never buys.
Right.
And I think the best advice that, you guys are giving is just ask us.
Yes. Yeah, we understand that this is one of the most big decisions that you will make in your entire life. It's a very emotional decision and a very scary decision at times. Like you said, it took you a whole group of people in order to really give you that peace of mind. We're just one piece of that puzzle, but truly know, like, piece by piece, gaining knowledge, gaining empowerment, surrounding yourself and equipping yourself with the right people.
Yeah.
Because it is a big deal. And we know that, and we don't bear that lightly. Like, we take that very serious. And we want to make sure that you are equipped for the best and to have peace of mind as you move into that big decision.
Yeah. I agree.
Yep. And it's
Anything
the
else?
best day on closing day.
I know. Yes.
Celebration day.
Celebrate, like, people that I would never, the times I've heard people say, I never thought I could do this.
Right.
I'll tear up, but I never thought I could do this. Nobody in my family's ever bought a house.
Yeah.
How many times you've heard that, right?
Yeah.
So it's very emotional for us.
Oh, the single mom, the
Yes.
single dad, the
Yes.
somebody who's been through a foreclosure or a
Yeah.
bankruptcy in 07, 08, who's like rebuilt their life.
Yeah,
Super proud of people.
absolutely.
Yeah, I always say, I think people think that people just call us up and they're like, hey, came into some money. I'd love to buy a house. It's divorce, job loss, relocation, death, injury. Usually something major has happened in somebody's life when we're coming to the forefront.
Yep.
And then I'm sending them over to an LO that I trust and saying, like, I'm going to need you to math before we go shopping so that I can make sure that, I don't care. That's what we talked about. I don't care what I can afford.
Right.
I can't be laying at night like staring at the ceiling being like, okay, every January 1, I'm guaranteed to make $0. I have to continue to hope that clients show up and want to use me based on my expertise and all of that. I think that it's so much deeper.
Yeah.
In pitching kids keys, like younger people keys or first-time home buyers keys, even older people, like that's amazing too. There are a million times that I've heard in my career, not a million, maybe, but a lot, where people have said at some point you should no longer work with first-time home buyers. I will never not work with first-time home buyers.
They're some of the most grateful people.
100%.
Like, you feel so fulfilled at the end.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like, if I'm going to do my job, I love to get paid. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But also, like, that sense of fulfillment and passion and gratitude, like, there is just nothing that compares to that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, too, they need the most experienced people out there to help them because they haven't navigated this, buying process before.
And I mean, it's our online applications, for your www.goodamortgage.com easy, and will they just throw a pre-approval letter at you? But do you actually understand what you're getting with that pre-approval? And do you know if you're actually qualified, if that's a comfortable payment for you? No. And that's where it's like, we break it down. Like, sure, yeah. Do you qualify for this much? Yeah, sure. But is that the right thing for your family? Probably not.
Yeah, and there's so many things that show up on those.
Oh, yeah.
And I put my mom hat on a lot of times.
Yeah.
I always say, okay,
My big sister.
This is your this is your pre-approval. However, I'm putting my mom hat on. Look at this payment. Are you good with that payment?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, is that manageable?
Right.
For you.
That's what Celeste did to me. She was like, "You're pre-approved for $300,000. You should be shopping at $180."
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what?
You qualify for this.
Right.
But here's realistically lifestyle-wise where we should be in order for you to still have fun.
Yeah. And I was going from being a teacher, which, obviously had a salary, to, and thank the good Lord that she did that, because 2 years later was 07, 08, and everything was like in the bottom of, the doldrums. So I do think that it is navigable. I think that what we have to have is better education.
Yeah. Agreed.
Which I'll always advocate for, and more conversation.
Yeah.
In some level of vulnerability to be able to say, these are the things that I'm concerned about.
Absolutely.
And I just want to say to, my mom and my 4 aunts who are watching this, do that. Like, use us up.
Yeah.
Call us. Ask us all the questions. We've been doing this for so long.
Right.
And we've seen so many different, we call them transactions, but really they're stories of people that we've, helped navigate whatever problem it is that you have. And if you have a problem that we haven't seen before, then we just call each other and we say, hey, listen, how do we figure out, this particular situation?
Right.
Yeah.
It's all about conversation and communication.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, 100%. I am super grateful for Molly Fazakerly and for Lisa German, and both of them
for
are at
having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Super fun.
Lake Michigan Credit Union is where you can find them. And if you have questions, or there are more mortgage-related questions that you want us to answer, I'd be happy to take those in comments, and we'll get the answers that you're looking for. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.